All right, as we get started in the second half hour, this is the time of year where a lot of seniors in high school are getting ready to apply for college. It's a pretty big task, writing the essays, getting the test scores together, the activity lists, figuring out where they'd like to go and like to apply. And it's also a pretty high stakes game. I mean, you remember a couple of years ago, we had parents even go to jail for trying to game the system and get their kids into their dream school. Well, college admissions have changed, especially since the Supreme Court ruling that banned considering race when it came to admissions. So I talked to Jeff Salingo. He is the author of a book called Who Gets In and Why, and he actually embeds himself in 3 universities in their admissions process and gives you an overall look at how it's done. And we talked about the changes and what kids and parents should take into consideration this fall. You wrote a book where you embedded in 3 college admissions offices, and it was really fascinating. Each institution, of course, is different in what they look at and consider, but can you explain overall what the process is for schools in terms of it all being about the data when they form their class?
Yeah, they're constantly looking, for example, how many men and women they have. They're looking at racial and ethnic diversity. They're looking at the number of majors. They're looking at the full pay students, for example. And so what they're trying to figure out constantly is how that class is shaping up. And one of the big impacts of the Supreme Court decision in June that they no longer could consider race is that they're not going to be able to look at a student's race throughout the process. So they're going to put students in the process at the beginning. They're going to send out these acceptances or rejections at the end, and only then will they know how their class shapes up.
How do you think that is going to change consideration-wise for students when they apply to colleges now?
Well, I think some students are going to look for other ways that they could talk about their race and ethnicity, for example, in essays and other ways that they can show, because they're not going to be able to, for example, check a box like they have in the past, or they're still going to be able to check a box, but the university is not going to have access to that information when they're reading the application. And so they're going to be looking for other ways, and they should be looking for other ways where they could talk about their lived experiences in the application.
I think what's really fascinating is we're seeing more and more schools going score optional. A lot of schools went to it during the pandemic, and many of them are now hanging on to it. How do you think that is going to be an impact on admissions?
Well, we already have been seeing that for the last couple of years, that basically what it has done is kind of open the floodgates to universities that now no longer require a test score. And students now say, oh, why not? I might as well apply to fill in the blank institution, or even Harvard or Yale, because they're not requiring a test score no matter what I have. And so what you've seen now is application numbers double, triple, quadruple at some of these places. And now their extra low acceptance rates have even gone even lower. And so I think we're going to continue to see that. I think eventually these numbers will start to even out as students say, oh, even without a test score, I still can't get in. But I think we're going to continue to see this application inflation essentially at these colleges and universities.
When you talk about applications, I think the dreaded thing is the essay. And I actually have a high school senior at home right now, and he is working on that college essay. We just saw in the New York Times, they did a story on AI writing an essay for Yale, Princeton, and Harvard, and it did actually pretty well. What do you see the danger of students all of a sudden turning to AI and saying, hey, maybe it can help me out with my essay? But really, AI is here to stay. So are they doing themselves a favor and showing the university that they can work with it?
Well, I think what they should do is perhaps use AI as a kind of a draft, right, that they can edit. But I think it's going to be very clear to somebody reading it, or should be clear to somebody who has been reading these essays for years, what is kind of more personal and what is written by AI. Because at the end of the day, most of these are personal statements, and AI cannot replicate kind of the personal story of students.
There seems to be an ongoing narrative, and we talk to parents right now saying it was much harder. It's harder now to get into the universities than it was when I was applying to college back then. Is that truly accurate, or is it that it seems like people are going for big name schools or elite colleges that just keep getting the larger pool of applicants and they can't take everyone in?
And it's the latter part that is exactly happened, right? So all of these more selective places have just become more selective because they haven't increased the size of their class, but yet they're getting more applications than ever before. And that is the difference from when today's essentially Gen X parents applied to college, 30 or 40 years ago. They were applying to maybe fewer colleges, and thus these colleges didn't have as many applications as they have today. And again, the size of the class is the same as it was back in the 80s. And so when you get all these applications, qualifications, but you keep the size of your class essentially the same, of course it's going to be harder to get in.
You know, it's one of those things that there's a place for everyone. If you can make it to a four-year university, you're going to be okay. But what would your advice be to parents and for students who are hand-wringing a bit about the places that they should be at or the marquee name universities? What would you advise people going through process right now that they should think about since all the changes have happened?
Well, I think they really need to think about what is a good fit for them, that there are a lot of universities beyond the top 20, beyond the top 30. What you're really looking for is a place that offers your major, where you feel like you're going to have a sense of belonging and purpose to what you do, where it's a good financial fit so that you're not putting your family or yourself deep into debt, right? There are tons of places that provide that engagement for students that students never look at. And so I always tell students, consider what you can consider in this process. This is the best time right now, early in the fall, to be looking at a wider range of schools. You may still end up applying to those top selective schools, but you really want to be looking at that wider range, at least right now.
Hey, Jeff, are they going to be looking at legacy admissions in terms of seeing if that is fair or unfair for students? Because we know that a lot of universities will take that into consideration.
Yeah, we're starting to see this now, even at the state level, where we're starting to see individual states think about having state laws that do not allow the consideration of legacy status in admissions. And the one thing I'd worry about is that we may end up with a patchwork of laws. So we're going to have a couple of states outlaw legacy admissions, and others will allow it. And so now I think that's what one of the dangers in having it done at the state level. We may see federal legislation on this at some point, but for right now, I think most colleges are going to try to keep it unless they're told they can't.
All right, Jeff Salingo, the author of Who Gets In and Why. It's a great book. Thanks so much for helping us navigate the road. Really appreciate it.
It was great to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, navigating that world. It's kind of a difficult one right now. I keep telling my son, you gotta finish the college essay. We'll see how it's all going to go.